Hey Pulso fam. Earlier this year, we changed the name of the show to Confianza to better represent our mission, to create a space where we could share raw experiences we're all going through but rarely let others see. The uncomfortable experiences of grief or loss, of dynamics that are challenging and painful moments that we hope that by unpacking them in community will help all of us feel less alone. This episode is not an easy one, and it's exactly why we named the show Confianza. Antoinette Dow moved out of her parents' house when she was a teenager. By this point, 4 of her 5 siblings had already left due to abuse in the home. Antoinette's father would physically abuse her mother, Rosa, and it was just more than what Antoinette could bear. I'm Liz Rebecca, and today we're talking with Antoinette and her mother, Rosa, about the power of forgiveness and healing between mother and daughter. This is Confianza. Welcome to Confianza. Our first question for all of our guests is if you're willing to share, what was the last thing you told someone in Confianza?
I met with friends the other day for like a little chisme session, and I was just complaining about my job and then also catching them up on my family drama.
And with me, there's not a day that goes by that I don't have, that I go flashbacks that I have so many memories of. Some good, some not good. And that it disturbs me because the life we had was not a very happy life. It was very suffering. It was very sad because it was abuse, alcohol abuse.
Claro, recordar es vivir, but it's also reliving some of those hard moments. And Antoinette, you're talking about those struggles too that we all have in our daily life. The good thing you have a crew to vent with and to talk those things through with. That always makes us feel better. Tell us a bit about your childhood.
Well, my life was very happy. I grew up with a loving father, a loving mother. They were both working. I never saw my father touch my mom in a violent way. And we would go out friends, and she never had trouble with my dad. I didn't suffer for hunger until I was married.
I think for me, and this is not my story to share, it's my mom's, but there are things that I know about her that she didn't share that I think provide context. So when she talks about her idyllic childhood, yes, she did have one, but my mom did experience abuse that in her childhood. But when she did try to talk to somebody at the time, you don't go to your parents, you go to your priest. And when she did, the priest was like, say Hail Marys, and that's it. So at that time, she felt, I think when she has described that event to me is when she accepted that there were certain things that she would just have to endure and that were acceptable. So there were other instances of abuse in her childhood. And at the time that she was growing up, I think I would say like the 70s, there was no sex education. You don't talk about sex, especially in a Mexican household. You don't talk about boys. So when she went out for the first time, she met a guy. She unfortunately got pregnant with the first man that she met. And at the time, my grandparents were very strict, from the Rancho Mexicans. And they told her, you made your bed, you lie in it. You have to marry him because you have disgraced the family. She was only a teenager. She was 17. So she went to go live with that man, knowing nothing about him, and endured everything that he did to her. And when she would go to my grandparents and try to say something, they would say, that's your husband. You listen to him. You respect him. And by the time her family learned the extent of what he was doing to her, she had already accepted it as, well, you said he was my husband, and now I love him, and now we have 4 kids together, so what do you want me to do? And then that's when she met my dad. And when she met him, all she knew of men was obedience and compliance, and whatever they say goes. So I think that is important just to color her perspective. I know she blames herself for accepting abuse, but there's also that context of what she was taught and what she experienced
That's
That's it.
true.
What would you add to that, Rosa?
Yeah, those were those. I'm glad you mentioned it because that was I forget about that. I was abused. No, not by my father, but a friend of my father's, and I remember that there was just so much in me that I already hated myself ever since I was a child because of that incident. I thought it was my fault, and I felt so dirty. I felt very dirty. And then when I met my husband being abusive, I thought that was a kind of treatment that I should get. I was very abusive. And my children, unfortunately, they saw it and, they remember it. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you remember that? Well, yeah, Mama, I do remember that. I was there. I said, oh gosh, I thought you would probably be sleeping as loud as you and him were, Mom. No, we weren't sleeping. We saw him drag you off the bed with, pulling your hair. I said, oh, no, we saw that? He said, yeah, my son's, yes, my son. He saw a lot of stuff that I thought he would forget. Remember, Mom, he tried to run over you. Why did he try to run over you? I said, I think it was high. I thought, it's okay. He has a drinking problem. My parents wanted me to stay there. So I did. I stayed there. And I would hide my bruises like, long blouses or turtlenecks when it was hot. I just forgot about it because I was just so used to living in pain and hurt. And I lived like that for 14 years. And I didn't want my mother to know. They love my other sister's husband, so why can't they love mine?
I think it's so relevant and crucial, Antoinette, that you brought that to light here, and Rosa, that you added some context to that, because again, whereas it may not have been your childhood, like Antoinette said, you were still a teen, you were still young, and to have had this burden of wrongful treatment against you at such an impressionable age with not feeling the support from your parents, and we see how that traveled through your second marriage as well, and through so many of the things that you've been healing from in the last several years. All of these reactions on your end that you're sharing, of not wanting to tell anyone, of being used to it, of wanting people to respect and love your husband, and listening to your parents, that respect of what your parents say is what you do. It is of course remnants of the time, and it's not an excuse for that to have happened to you, but the way in which we respect young people and include their opinion, and welcome a different treatment to people who are younger in the family is so different than how you grew up, Rosa, than how my mom grew up, than how our grandparents grew up. And that's what the product that you're seeing in Antoinette, right? Such an empowered, confident young woman that, as you said, Rosa, during this whole conversation, has taught you so much about self-respect and self-love and boundaries and your worth as a woman, that it was just so beyond the realm of possibility for so many of our families so many decades ago. So how about you, Antoinette? How do you feel your childhood was?
Yeah, mine was different. I think my childhood modeled less of my mom's, more of what I've heard my dad's childhood model as. So he was the one that experienced the things that I saw in my household, substance abuse, domestic violence. That was his generational trauma that he carried into the household. So that was my childhood.
And for you, Rosa, tell us about the kind of child Antoinette was as she was growing up.
She was a very good child. Very good child. I was amazed because I knew she was, from my other daughters, she was different from my other daughters. I remember her little brother got lost, and Antoinette made sure that he was okay. She was like his little mommy. And she would protect him.
It sounds like Antoinette, Rosa, was very mature. Antoinette, where do you think you got that self-sufficiency and that maturity from?
So as my mom stated, she did work a lot. So did my dad. They couldn't afford childcare. So my oldest siblings all ran away at some point, left the home. So then it was just me left and my younger siblings. So I took on the role that they had taken on for me and just watched over him. And that became a way that I saw my value in the family, right? It's like, oh, I have this one job of taking care of my brother. I'm going to do it the best of my ability. So that's where that came from.
How many siblings are you all?
Fabulous question. There's 6 of us.
Okay.
There's an age gap between me and my older sister, the one's closest in age to me, 9 years. So my eldest sibling, I think there's like a 20-something year age gap there. So I don't remember her being in our house. She left when I was a toddler. And everyone else kind of just left one by one. So by the time I was like maybe 8, I was the last one left. Like I was around 8 or 10 when I was the last one left.
Wow.
Myself and my little brother. And they would come back. It's not like they left and we never saw them again. They would come back to visit. I think they came back to make sure my brother and I were okay and kind of like talk to my parents and try to maintain a family bond. Because throughout all this, surprisingly, like we all just remained a family. We all talked and tried to make the best of it. Whenever someone would leave, they would just give like, all of us siblings, we'd have a serious talking to, like take care of mom, take care of dad. Let us know if you need any help. But like, this is for me, I gotta go.
And you both have mentioned siblings leaving the home throughout their childhood and their teens. What were you observing, Antoinette, as you saw your siblings leave? Or did you all talk about those reasons why they decided to move out of the house? And how did that affect your eventual decision to also leave home?
Yes. So whenever an older sibling would leave the home, the younger siblings would just be really devastated.
And what was the reason, Antoinette? What was the it that they were leaving? If you can tell us more specifics around what was happening at home that they felt they had to leave, and where would they go? Would they move far? Would they live together? What was that whole process like?
It was different for each sibling that left. My eldest sibling, she originally, so we would start with family, then we would go to friends, and then if we were old enough, we would go into relationships. So my oldest sister kind of started that trend. She originally went with my aunt, my tia, and lived there for like a year or so, and then moved back home for a while, didn't like it, met someone, and moved across the country with him, and eventually got married and all that. Similar stories for my other siblings. So they started living with family, tias, my grandma. And then when that, ran its course, they would go to friends or move out by themselves and, just work multiple jobs to make that happen. And then end up, with a boyfriend or something. So.
And what is it that they were escaping at home? What was it that they just had enough of?
Yes. So there was substance abuse and domestic violence in our home that we saw every day. And when you're young, you can kind of avoid it or you're kept out of it. As you hit puberty age, you start getting, you feel the need to get involved, to protect, to de-escalate, things like that. So it was the constant of having to do that every day and be involved in that. And the emotional and like physical effects that has on you. So yeah, when you do that every day, you just get sick of it. We did that for years, every day. So that's.
How does it feel now remembering that? And how do you remember feeling back then after your siblings would leave and just the daily toll of having to face that reality at home?
Yeah. So when you see that every day, there comes a point where you stop trying to, you just accept it, right? Like, okay, this is my life. Like now this is about survival. So like, what can I do today to not make this person angry? What can I do today to avoid conflict? Does that mean, we leave at night when things get bad and we come back later? When do I do my homework? I'm going to do it before I know things get bad because I know things get bad between this time and that time. So yeah, it's just a lot of like walking on eggshells, survival mode. days blend together, and then there becomes a breaking point, and then you just have to choose what your breaking point is. And then at that point you decide, do I leave, do I stay? We stayed for younger siblings and for our mom, but then there becomes a point where it's like, if I stay, I don't know what will happen to me. And so I have to leave for me to give myself a chance. And so that's what I did. That's what my siblings did.
Rosa, how were you facing this at this time? So if you can go back to that time when your kids were children and they were moving out before they were adults, what was your take on this? How were you feeling at this time? Was it relief that they would be out of harm's way? Was it hurt? Was it a mix of many emotions? How are you feeling?
I was devastated. I knew why they left. I know I would still ask, why would you leave? And they would, of course, tell me, well, because. And I said, I know, but he's drunk and it's a disease. And for whatever they taught me in AA. And, with Antoinette, I really felt devastated that she left. I mean, I'm thinking, now what am I going to do? She was my support. I looked up to her, and she was younger than me. But I was also, in abuse mode. Like I'm thinking, I need you to give me strength. I need you to help me with your dad. And she was young, but I still looked at her, and I still looked to her. That, she would always comfort me, make me feel better about myself. And she says, you're not dumb. Because I said, yeah, I'm dumb. Because I'm dumb. Stop saying that. And still to this day, she corrects me. Because I'm saying, yeah, but no smart woman would stay in that kind of marriage. So I must be dumb. She goes, you were just abused. She would explain things to me. And a lot of guilt, a lot of shame I have. Because, it was when good things would happen to her and her performances at school, because she was in orchestra and she did so well. And I knew I couldn't be on the same education level like her. I said, I don't understand you no more. I said, what do you mean? She said, I said, because I'm here and you're here. You're here. I said, and I feel like I can't communicate anymore with you. I said, because those are thoughts that I didn't even think of. I only had a 12th grade education, and I had vocational training being a medical assistant. And so I'm thinking, with all this experience I had, I was also an interpreter. And, with the experience I had, I would try to understand them. But no, I couldn't, because I couldn't even see myself like they saw themselves. And they wanted better for themselves. I wanted better too, but I'm thinking that she says, why don't you get out of this situation? She would tell me, leave. But I'm thinking, no, because she goes, I've heard every excuse that you put. You've run out of excuses. And she would tell me all the excuses. And I said, okay, this is my last, and this is not an excuse. I still love him.
I'm teary-eyed as I hear you, Rosa.
Dude,
I'm teary as I hear you, because there's so much admiration for Antoinette that I'm hearing in your words. There's that pursuit of the American dream in many ways, where el alumno supera al maestro, as we say in Spanish, where your kids are pursuing and achieving much more than you are. And there's also this idea of parentification. I'm no therapist, but I can relate to that, right? Where, this young, mature, exemplary young woman that Antoinette was, in the home, that stability that she gave you, like you're saying, she had an outsized burden for her age to fill a role, Rosa, in support for you as she was also growing up. So there's just such a complex, powerful dynamic here that I'm hearing, and just your own challenges, Rosa, and in wanting to do better and finding yourself, as you say, in this abusive dynamic and relationship in the home that is just so so challenging to get out of, and you were about to share that experience of what it was like to be you in that time, and that despite your children and everyone telling you to leave, it just is not that simple in practice, right?
No, not if you're, no. You've got to be abused to understand why you stay in that relationship. I didn't see my mother abused. I didn't see my father, my sisters. They all had good marriages. Why can't I? I don't think I was strong enough. I always thought I was weak. And another thing, I didn't love myself. So if you love yourself, you have respect for yourself. But I didn't have that, Barney. Neither did my husband, but he didn't respect the children either. And I totally lost my respect from 2 abusive marriages. So of course I just started liking or loving myself. I've accepted myself. It was 3 years ago, recently. It's not been 10 years ago. I hated myself. I couldn't stand to see myself in the mirror. But I went ahead and said, well, you got to live with what you have. So I did, and I went forward with this. But now I'm glad things are different, and I can see my children. I said, I love you. I know that. And I didn't mean for you to drag you in the mud with me. Maybe I was selfish.
And what was your relationship like with your mom during those teenage years where you were between siblings' homes, when you weren't at home anymore? What was the dynamic then?
When I originally moved with my sister, the agreement was that I would go home like once a month to spend a weekend with my parents. But that quickly ended after like the first 1 or 2 weekends, because I was like, I can't be here. Like, I can't. This is exactly what I left. So then I would stop answering her calls. I would not text her. There would be periods where I wouldn't text anybody. Like I would leave my sister's house and go stay with a friend for like 4 weeks and not tell anybody. And nobody knew where I was. Nobody knew if I was okay. And at the time I didn't see anything wrong with it, because in my head it was like, well, if you cared about me enough, like I would be living at home. I wouldn't even be in this situation. So my relationship with her was very difficult. And it only, I think, got better once I went to college and I asked my younger brother to move in with me. And I understood, like, I began to understand the responsibilities that come with being a guardian. That's when I started reaching back out to my mom and saying, hey, your son is getting on my nerves. What advice do you have? Or like, go talk to your son. Things like that.
So there was a bonding over caretaking, ironically, between your mom as a caretaker who you felt wasn't caretaking for you in the best way, but still had, I'm sure, some values and some examples of what to do in those scenarios. That's fascinating, right?
Absolutely.
It was almost like a caregiver to caregiver dynamic role. Again, you, Antoinette, taking on this role beyond your years. Again, I'm no therapist, Pulso fam, but I'm seeing that pattern, right? That where you have thrived through your own challenges, it's been through channeling that responsibility for others. Am I right on that, Antoinette? Do you identify with that, or am I totally off base?
No, I think so. I think there was a bond over caregiving, a bond of like being in survival mode. And we absolutely should have gone to therapy or sought some type of professional help. But at the time, I think a lot of us were like, we had assumptions that many do that like, oh, this seeking help, external help makes us weak. There's no one else that understands our family. Like, it's not that we don't love each other. It's just that we have these underlying issues that we just need to like get through. So it was always like a get through the day, get through the next couple of days. And no one ever stopped to think like, okay, how is this affecting me mentally? And I didn't seek professional help till after I already graduated college.
Which was how long ago?
That was in 2019. So yeah, 5 years ago. I didn't start going to therapy until 4 years ago. 3-4 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that timeline too, because Rosa, you're sharing that you feel like you really came into that self-love and into transitioning out of the abusive relationship that you were in and around 3 years ago. And Antoinette, you're sharing this similar timeline. I'm curious if you all sought professional guidance together, or were these just parallel paths? Talk to me about that healing journey of the last 5 years for both of you all. I'll pass it to you, Rosa.
Oh, well, no, Antoinette wanted me to seek help. And I said, oh, yes, I'll go seek help. And then I did. And then she said, have you gone seen someone? Oh, yes. And then I'm going to start calling. And then I didn't. And then I was thinking, how can they help me? They've never been in an abusive situation. I didn't because my son had convinced me, what are you going to, now for what? What are you going counseling for? They're not going to help you. Look at Antoinette, he would say. I said, well, but it's helped her some. He goes, yeah, but her therapist made her not want to visit you, not want to see you. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, that's true. Maybe it isn't. So I was thinking about her therapist that was trying to help her. You know, her therapist said, don't go back to your family if you know that makes you feel that you don't want to be there. So I said, well, I don't want a therapist to take me away from my family because that's all I have is family. That's all I have is family. How am I going to trust my therapist over family? So, I didn't go. I would just pray about it on my rosary and say things will get better. God wants to see me happy.
Yeah, Rosa, that's so powerful what you're sharing, because it speaks to some of that root reasons why so many in our community may not choose professional help in how we imagine it, given some of those tips on boundaries or other suggestions that professionals may give us in certain situations. And I think so much has been talked about the importance of having culturally competent folks be able to understand the realities of our families. So what I take from your experience is that it is valid for you to feel that way, because if you're perhaps seeing a therapist that doesn't understand or relate to how crucial family, extended family, the family bond is within Latino communities, it may be hard to both help the person struggling, of course, take care of themselves with their professional guidance, but also understanding the values that we hold as Latinos. And so I think that conversation is so important. And it's kind of like a public service announcement for more Latinos to get into therapy as a profession, to support those within our communities, because there is a lot of nuance and context. And again, those values that folks in the mental health space may not understand about our community. And so you naming that, Rosa, I'm sure many who will be watching this episode will understand and know that some of their family members may also relate to that. So I think it is so important to have folks, again, from our community being able to professionally help other Latinos with all of these challenges. For you, Antoinette, how about you? How were you seeking help for yourself? You know, we talked about who was supporting you in your support system, but you talked about starting therapy only within the last 5 years. And what are some of the tools or some of the the resources that beyond that
Yes.
bond with family and friends was helping you in these last 5 years?
Yes. So when I was in college, I realized that the distance helped a great ton. When you're not like a 45-minute drive or physically near your family or the issues, it's easier to kind of like not forget them, but not prioritize them as much as like,
Right.
I have a final next week, right? So being in college helped me tremendously because it gave me something else to worry about. I should have, but I didn't seek help at the time when my younger brother was living with me, because I had too much pride. I thought that like I knew what I was doing and I could help him, and because I've been there before, and I was very I wanted him to do what I had did, right? Like graduate high school, go to college. I was like, college saved me, college will save you, right? Like that's the path. And I didn't consider enough that that's not the path he wanted to take. He wanted to take something else. And I was resistant to what he wanted and didn't listen to him as much as I should have. So from there, I in that situation, I didn't know who to talk to because I felt that from my other friends who had like on campus, you have like campus counseling, campus therapy, but it's mainly to talk about like the stress of academics, right? Not to talk about, I have a younger brother that I'm a guardian to. Like, how do I be a mom? Like,
Wow, yeah. What would they have said?
What would they have said? Well, they told me, oh, like, they would have asked me, like, oh, well, why is it the right decision for him to live with you, right? Like, maybe you should consider him going with someone else. At the time, that wasn't an option for me. I couldn't even fathom that. He was my responsibility. He's always been my responsibility. So I need to do better, not him. Like, I can't throw him on anybody else. So that's why I resisted that at the time. When he graduated high school, he decided he wanted to move out on his own. That was fine. I was able to focus on me a little bit more. So like I had made time to go out with friends, to do other extracurricular activities, to like do internships, things like that. And that helped me. So then I moved away from my state, moved to DC for my job. And then when I came home from the holidays and I saw that there were the same problems that I had left 5 years ago, that's when I kind of had, I guess like a coming to, or like, it brought me to this place of deep sadness that I sought professional help because I was like, I feel like I'm doing so well. I got like my dream job. I'm starting this like career that I've always wanted. I got my degree. Like I got all the things that I said I wanted as a child, and I'm still unhappy. And I'm unhappy because I can't help my family and I don't know how to. Like, I feel like I've tried multiple things and none of it is fixing their issues. So when I sought professional help, that's when I had to learn that it's not your problem to solve. And that sounds so simple, but I didn't understand that concept because I grew up with the mentality of you help where you can. If you see a problem, you do solve it. Especially when it comes to your family. Like, family's everything, right?
When we were preparing for this conversation, Antoinette, you mentioned to us that throughout this journey of reckoning with your childhood and healing from it, you did receive an apology from your mom. And I'm curious about that moment. If you can share with us, Rosa, what was that apology like? And what did you say to Antoinette? And from you, Antoinette, how do you feel that affected the relationship that you now have? How important was that for the healing and the new dynamic that you now have with your mom? I'll pass it to you first, Rosa.
Yes, I remember I remember we were on the train together, and that was in Baltimore, and it was dark, and and we were just, both of us were thinking, and then she turns to me and says, "What are you thinking about?" I said, "Well, I was thinking about how lucky I am that I'm here with you, and we don't have to look anywhere else to go sleep. We can, I'm going to go home with you, and I'm going to go sleep." Because we would worry about where we were going to sleep so we can, because she was going to school and my husband would go in and wake her up and talk. And so I was thinking that before that, she really did make me feel bad when she'll have a memory, a flashback. And I said, "Yeah, I remember that. And I'm sorry." I told her, "I'm sorry."
How did that moment land for you, Antoinette? Do you remember that train ride to Baltimore? And how did that moment of apology, I'm sure there were not just those 3 words in one time, but how did that form your own healing process and the relationship you're now able to have with your mom?
Yeah, so I do remember the train ride from DC to Baltimore. I was taking my mom to come visit me in DC and going back to Baltimore to visit. And when she was explaining these things to me, I realized that my mom felt the same way that I did. She also gets flashbacks. She doesn't call it PTSD, but I know that it is through professional help, that's what that is. So it made me feel sad for her. because I knew that she felt feelings of guilt and shame, and I wish I could have been better. But being on the other side of the fence, all I could tell her was that it's okay. Like, I mean, I it didn't end up in a ditch. Like, I'm fine. And we just had brunch in DC, and we're going home to my nice high-rise apartment in Baltimore. Like, I'm still processing it, but like, I don't live that life anymore. So you don't have to over apologize for, like, there's nothing that's going to come out of your guilt and shame. All we can do is move forward. And so that's how I wanted her to feel. Like, I don't want my mom to feel bad or, castrate before me and do all these things. I just want her to recognize that I love her and we're not in that situation anymore, and she can forgive herself because I forgave her. And we just move forward. Like, we move on.
My final prompt for you is if there's anything that you, Rosa, would like to say directly to Antoinette in Confianza here before we wrap up.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can't wait to go live with you and stay with you. I feel like I'm really going to get bonded. And, I have others or brothers and sisters saying, well, y'all know how she is. I said, yeah, I know how she is. They said, well, if you don't, you always have a home with me. And I'm thinking, I think I'll be okay. I'm just going to go bond with her and be the only person I know how to be myself. So I want to tell her I can't wait to spend all that time with her. And I've just got so much that I wanted to tell her. And so I'm glad that, she's willing to take me in. and we're going to bond like we had to. Maybe it won't be the same, but I'm thinking I've still got a lot to give. A lot of myself to give her. My time, which I didn't have before because of working and putting up with an abusive husband. But now I got all my time. All my time is for her. And, I know she cooks and cleans and she does everything better than me, but I got time.
Oh, that's such a gift, Rosa. I'm tearing here as I hear you say that. I wish you all delicious brunches in the beautiful city bonding of your choice as you all reconnect in this new chapter for you both. Thank you both for just the vulnerability, the sharing, the willingness to come into the space in Confianza and share your experiences. You both, I know, are going to help so many young women, young people, Latinos, Latino families to see themselves reflected in you, to heal and to find a different path forward. So thank you.